Contact at
Welcome to Live Action Star Wars. I'm James.
I'm Ralph.
That still gets you, doesn't it?
It does.
I see.
Did I say the sound? What the sound effect is?
The flicker sound? No, I don't think so.
It's I just got it out of what is it? Final Cut. It's it's in like an ice skate. Like it's
wow. I guess it's like yeah. I can hear it now. Huh, that's cool. You're a regular Ben Burt.
Yeah.
Who is not in this documentary, and it's very sad. He doesn't really do it anymore. Today we are talking about the Skywalker Legacy, the making of documentary for the Rise of Skywalker. Last time, 2 weeks ago, we did the behind the scenes for The Last Jedi, and it made me want to compare and contrast it with this one. Again, like that episode, we are primarily talking about the behind the scenes. We have talked about this movie before, so yeah, we're talking about the behind the scenes of it. Right.
I like the way this documentary is set up.
It reminded me a lot of our episode where it's a celebration.
Right. Exactly. But also like it has like behind the scenes footage and interviews from the older film. It's like the original trilogy films. Yeah. And a lot of that stuff I haven't seen before.
I was going to say, it almost feels like cut stuff from the from Star Wars The Jedi documentary that we covered a while back. Like which was ostensibly like the documentary that came out around the same time as Return of the Jedi, maybe a little bit after, that was being made concurrently with that film and them at that time. So there's a lot of Mark Hamill and Carrie in particular talking about how this is the end. This is the close of it all. And yeah, they splice in a lot of that stuff, and it's really it's a nice framing mechanism, and it's what sort of sold this documentary to me.
It's the most poetry they rhyme sort of documentary, like to the point where they're talking about the giant snake and they cut to Mark Hamill or Anthony Daniels talking about working with Jabba. They're talking about giant creatures, and then later they're talking about small creatures like Babu Frick, and then they cut to Stuart Freeborn talking about Yoda and how small Yoda was and how his heart
servos and
So like from that standpoint, it's really good. I think it's a little long.
It is. I didn't realize either. I fired it up yesterday, and why I'm now not working nights. I don't have as much time to watch stuff during the day. So I was like, oh, okay, it's this documentary, maybe like an hour and a half or something. And I fired it up and I was like, oh, this is a full 2 hour long thing.
It's longer than Star Wars.
Yeah,
that's longer than The Empire Strikes Back. That's too 4 minutes shorter than Return of the Jedi.
Unbelievable. It was
long.
It was long. And at first I was a bit taken aback by it. I didn't love it at first because it felt very puffy. It felt like we talked
propaganda.
About like
the Rise of Skywalker,
like a 2 hour version of a featurette that you get these days, as opposed to a proper documentary. And 2 weeks ago when we talked about the director and the Jedi, we were saying how raw it was and how good it was and how they weren't afraid to sort of show the warts and all of it all, and how not everyone was happy making that production. And I feel like in the same way that in a lot of ways this film was a reaction to that film, this documentary feels like a reaction to that documentary, where it's like, we will not have anyone on camera unless they are smiling, unless they are happy, unless they are talking about how much fun they're having. And I mean, maybe they're all just really good actors, but you get it from the behind the scenes people as well who aren't actors. Everyone did look like they were having a blast making this film.
Yeah, even John Boyega, who
yes, and that's why like some of the stuff that he said afterwards, and Oscar Isaac as well, who was like, I'll only come back if I need another house. Like it's like, guys, I think you had fun. You all seemed to love doing it. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how they feel. I don't know what's changed in their minds. I don't know if they maybe took the criticisms of this film a bit too harsh. There are flaws. There are flaws in it. There are flaws in the film. There are flaws in those two's in particular character development and lack thereof. Or like they did miss a boat, I think, with some of their stuff. But it still looked like they were having a great time doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. James Halford is here, says The Last Jedi was crafted with love. Rise of Skywalker was a scramble to fix something that wasn't broken in the first place. It's tough, man. We've talked about Last Jedi versus Rise of Skywalker. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I don't think there was anything broken as far as the story goes with The Last Jedi. I think where we left was a good spot. I think everything in it was pretty good. There's some overlong stuff in there that's it's not necessary. Stuff that definitely could have been trimmed to get the runtime down to a more Star Wars length, as opposed to the 2.5 hour thing. But as far as picking up where they left off, it just might have been a struggle to try to figure out where you go from a group of resistance people on the Millennium Falcon, and that's it.
But I mean, the same could be said with going from Force Awakens into The Last Jedi. With the Rey handoff of the lightsaber, you're left in an impossible situation of how do you follow that moment. Yeah. I feel like with going from The Last Jedi into this, I remember at the time everyone was like, well, how long is it going to be? Is it going to be immediate again? Is it going to be a couple of years? Is it going to be 5 years? Is it going to be 10 years? And Rey's rebuilt everything. Like, how is it going to play out?
Right.
They ended up going with, I think it was a year, like almost like a year.
Right. I think one of the things though with this movie,
yeah,
that's brought up right off the bat is this is the end of this trilogy.
Yeah.
Also,
the end of it.
It's the end of all 9.
Yeah.
So you gotta have this, big closure with
the good guys
the
are gonna win.
Trilogy people. With and who can you possibly have from the prequels show up in this movie to tie it all together? And it's like, I guess Palpatine's really the only one. He's the one that talked about cheating death. He's the one that talked about Darth Plagueis. He's the one that set up cloning facilities. Like, it's one of those things where it's like,
I do wonder.
He's kind of the obvious choice when you think of it as a 9-episode story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Palpatine is in, now in 5 of the 6 original trilogy movies. Well, I guess he was always in 5 of the 6. It was just Ian McDiarmid got put in to replace the other Palpatine, and his presence looms large in Star Wars. And it kind of makes the most sense that Palpatine would be the guy.
Yeah, I've never disliked the fact that Palpatine's in it. I remember finding out long before it was announced that Ian McDiarmid was going to be there, and thinking that was really exciting and really interesting and really cool. But I do wonder now. We've talked about it whenever we talked about the live action stuff, how it feels like between the Mandalorian cloning stuff and the Bad Batch and some of the stuff in all of these shows, like there's an element of that storytelling where they're trying to explain the somehow of it all. And I do wonder if that stuff came out, say, between 8 and 9, or like long before that trilogy, if they'd done it chronologically, essentially, I do wonder how people would have reacted to this. You leave this movie exactly as it is. You just release all that stuff first, which probably wasn't written, probably is written in reaction.
Right.
But
Right.
like hindsight, like you retcon it all around, you change it all around, and you release it in that order. And I wonder how people would react. I wonder if people were like, "Oh, it's all bullshit. It's crap. I hate it." Like, because Star Wars never comes out in the order that we want it to come out, or the order that we expect it to come out. So, who cares? Just look back on it and go, "Oh, now I put all of these pieces together, and doesn't this jigsaw look great?" As opposed to going, "Well, that piece over there doesn't work, and this piece down here doesn't work." But
yeah.
Yeah.
And James Halford, he clarifies that he's not trolling.
No.
He just loves the first 2 movies of the sequel trilogy, and he said that Rise of Skywalker was such a letdown, and that the making of Doc, which we watched, is a puff piece. I agree that I felt like this was like, listen, people didn't care for it. Let's explain where we were coming from.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people bash on Chris Terrio. I think this documentary tells us like, hey, listen, this is kind of what we're going for. This is what we have to do. They're also picking up the pieces from Colin Trevorrow, that whole thing. And I think the problem is with all of the Disney era, every single last one of them, is they get these release dates and they hold to them. And they don't give themselves enough time to sit down and think about this. It's rush. And a rush, I think works well with like a Rogue One, where you're telling just one story and it's a self-contained thing, and you know the ending, and you just kind of want. And I think it lends to sort of the energy of Rogue One.
They released 5 movies in 4 years. Like it's not. It's too much.
It's too many.
Yeah.
When George made Star Wars, after he was done, then he started thinking about the sequel.
What became Empire. Yeah.
And he gave himself 3 years to do that.
Yep.
Maybe a year to write and figure it out, a year for production, and a year for post-production. And I know that post-production is now streamlined these days, where you can get to the point where you can design worlds and fully render worlds before shooting so that they're ready for you on the stage.
Which is
in the volume.
It's all well and good, but take their time with it as well. Like, don't rush this stuff. Yeah.
I feel like Disney got Star Wars, and Lucasfilm, and we're very excited and really wanted to get stuff out, and they just like, boom, here's the thing we're gonna do. Let's just go.
It's one of those things that gives me hope about the movies that we've had announced now, like this year's batch of announcements, the Celebration 3 announcements, because we're now at a point of like, oh god, I'll believe it when I see it, because they've announced so many projects, and so many of them, most of them haven't come to any sort of fruition. But now with these 3, there was an article in Variety today or yesterday that was like, they're still on track. They're still going. Daisy Ridley believes that her one is up at bat next. Basically, that's going to be the next one in production.
Watching this made me so excited for that one.
Me too. And then with Dave Filoni getting his promotion to Chief Creative Officer, is like his movies are a surefire thing. That's like, but when?
What are your thoughts on that? By the way,
the Mangold one, I'm not so sure, but again, like, I'm excited if it happens. I'd love to see it. But I don't know. I think the fact that they've got them all and they're working on them, and they've like, we will announce a release date when we have a release date, when we know. Like, I'd be fine with them in production, like in post-production, and then they announce a release date. Like, if it's May, if it's Celebration in May or April in May, and they say it's coming this Christmas, or even if it's the next Christmas sort of thing, like that. Fine, I've got no problem with that, because at that point, like, it's tangible. There's something there. What were you saying? What do I think about the Filoni movie?
No, just Filoni being the what is
COO,
Chief Creator?
CCO. Yeah. Great. It's nice to have a unifying person in that sense in that role. And
Right.
he's kind of been doing it, but not with the oversight that he now has. Like I read the article and his interview was like, I've been doing this, but after, like, I've sort of been able to come in. Yeah.
I'm kind of mixed about it.
I can see why. I know your feelings on some of the stuff.
I like what Dave Filoni does for Dave Filoni stuff.
Yes, so this is something.
Now, this is the thing is I feel like he's kind of in a position where he's essentially like a Kevin Feige type of person.
It seems like that's what they
want.
Be
like, listen, this is how we're going to do it. But here's my thing. I don't want everything wrapped up into canon like Marvel. I'm kind of done with Marvel. I didn't watch Loki. I didn't go see the Marvels. I don't even know what's coming down the road, but nothing has me excited because the things I like are Taika's Thor movies. I think Taika's great and he's a singular voice and he stands out and his movies stand out. I don't know if he's going to do another Thor. People shit on him and turn their back on him for some reason.
I think he said it. If he does, it's so far away. Yeah.
Yeah. And then James Gunn, who also was a standout director, did his own thing, and was made really interesting movies.
Yeah.
Now, when I think of Filoni in charge, the first thing I think of is Ahsoka. I feel like that's the one he had control over the most.
Yeah,
and I think Favreau's name might have been on it, but you can tell it's Filoni.
Yeah, if it is, it's one of those Favreau ones where it's like it's just because he sort of bought the TV.
Yeah, if you look at the unboxing, if you look at the Ahsoka toy unboxings and Filoni shows Favreau the Ghost, the Lego version of the Ghost, and he pulls out the Phantom and turns to Filoni, or Filoni turns to Favreau and says, "Did you know they did that?" Like, it feels like Favreau wasn't involved. He would have known that the Phantom comes out of Ghost. Here's my issue. If we're taking Ahsoka as the example of Filoni's Star Wars, he's got to really look at the people he's choosing to direct. I think Rick Famuyiwa is not good.
I think he's a good director, maybe not a great Star Wars director.
I think there's one episode that he directed that I liked, which is the second Mayfield one, the one where where Mayfield and Mando dresses
the helmet reveal, like that. Yeah. Great episode.
I think that episode is terrific. They had the seismic charges. That episode. The others I don't really care for, including especially the finales of Mandalorian season 3 and Ahsoka season 1. Really, really fell flat. So if Filoni is making decisions like directing and stuff, let's get Steph Green, who has proven time and time again that she's doing the best Star Wars on TV. Bryce Dallas Howard, who I think is currently the best Star Wars director out there. And then he could do stuff himself. But I want him to really sort of
if they announce either of those two as the director of the movie that he's writing, I'd be over the moon. I think that'd be a really fun and really nice, and especially as his movie is in that time frame, it's where they've played, like they know probably a lot of the cast who are in that. It'd be really good.
But I'm really hoping I would love more solos and Rogue Ones. I don't want it all tied into a big thing. It's one of the reasons why I like Michael's Werewolf by Night. It's not tied to shit. It has nothing to do with anything. If I want to go watch it, I could just pop it on. I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch the Marvels. And I guess Secret Invasion, or the show Secret Invasion, like had nothing to do with the Marvels. I don't know.
I think it's very interesting that this is happening and he's sort of getting this level of control, assuming that like basically Andor's pretty much done at this point. It's done. It's, if it's not fully in the can, it's like so close to being done that anything that he's going to do is not going to like go in and change.
That's a perfect example.
But that's the singular voice.
If he needs to oversee something, get Tony Gilroy. Get someone like Tony Gilroy and be like, okay, you're going to do your own thing. What are you doing? What are you pitching? If there's anything he could add to it, great. But just let him go do it. That's
It's additive, not changing. And I mean, he said that in the interview. We'll wait and see how it plays out in real life. But that is what he said. He's like, I don't want to be. I want to find the right people. Like that's more his goal there. And Carrie Beck is still sort of basically the person in charge of hiring these people. So hopefully it'll be a nice collaborative process.
I feel like as far as Star Wars goes, you can get anybody you want.
Yeah.
You can get anybody you want. I want to say that Taika's still working on his.
He again, there's been updates recently, like all this sort of post-strike, people are willing to talk again, and because it's been a while, everyone's asking these questions about projects that are sort of lingering. And I think he said, "Yeah, I'm still working on it. People will probably hate me for it, but it's going to come down the line. He's got like 3 other movies first." It's I think his is in a similar boat to Rian Johnson's, where it's like they've got it, it's not dead, it's just it'll happen if and when it happens, but they've got other priorities that they want to do.
Rian Johnson got a huge deal from Netflix to do the Benoit Blanc movies. So
yeah, exactly. And he loves doing that.
And he
gets to tell whatever story he wants with like without the oversight of IP. It's his sort of thing. So so fair play to him.
Yeah, and you know, if it's, I know that Filoni's still going to be working with Kathleen Kennedy, and I think that's great. It's just like she doesn't have to be involved with any sort of the creative side, which is fine. I don't know how much she is involved with the creative side, but it will be nice to sort of
seem to find people, and people have worked with her. She's been in the business for so long. She's so well established and known that, especially in like genre stuff. So if that's what her role is, then great. That's good.
Again, if she calls any director on the planet, they're going to take the call.
Yeah.
Whether they agree or say yes or not, that's a different story. But I mean,
they're all going to have the meeting. Like they're all going to take the call. They're all going to discuss it at least. Like, of course. It's cool. It's interesting. My worry was it as a book and comic reader, primarily the books and stuff, was like, oh, if he's in control of everything there, it's like how much control is he going to have over that? Because that's not an area that he's played in, and the stuff that they do there is really good, and I don't want it meddled with so that it has to link in. As you said, you don't want the marvelization of it. I want something like the High Republic to be its own thing, tell its own story. That yes, in the Acolyte, it's set in that era, and I think there's a couple of characters from these books that are old enough to be in that series. That's cool. Doesn't do anything to this story that we know of yet, but I like that separation. So to have that, great. We'll see. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But on the whole, I think it's a good move.
Yeah, because you can see that there will be hopefully a long-term game plan set in place, and I just don't want.
It's positive news, and it's news like this that makes me go, "Oh, good. Maybe next year we're going to go they're going to go into production with one of these films." Like at this point, that's all I'm looking for is like they're shooting. Like that'd be fine for me. Yeah. And not just because I've got a friend in editorial who's really struggling for work at the moment and is like, would be nice. He works at Pinewood, and let's get Ed paid because Ed
wait, so he works at Pinewood, like he works at Pinewood Studios proper, like
yeah.
Okay. So if I go and visit you, would Ed be able to get me into Pinewood Studios to walk around and possibly get anywhere near the 007 stage?
I've done that. I didn't take a picture of it. I felt really bad when I left. I went and I was in the audience for a game show, Taskmaster. If anyone watches Taskmaster, I think it's shown over there as well.
Sounds familiar,
yeah. It's fun. It's really fun. I just went and was in the audience for an episode of that last year sometime. And yeah, like you're walking through and like you're like, oh shit, that's the 007 stage right there. So you know that archway that you see in all like the behind the scenes docs, like that's where you pick up your badges to just walk on. Like
So so here's the thing. Like if I can just like peek my head in there, just to say I've been like in the 007 stage, like you don't know.
You'd have to ask Ed.
Here's the thing, because okay, let me just bring this up because I feel like I don't know if it's obvious or not. For those of you that watch the Invincible podcast that James and I do on Fridays, we have another one coming up in a couple days. You should. But Vactor, who is in the chat, was our guest last week.
Yeah.
Sent me a DM after we're done, and he's like, "Thanks for having me on." I said, "Absolutely, it was great. I mean, you were awesome." And he said, "You seem so happy." I was like, I am, and I feel like as soon as this show started, I felt like, oh, I don't have the same energy at all as I do with Invincible. And then I was thinking, I'm like sitting there watching like a 2-hour and 7-minute documentary about the Rise of Skywalker. And it does feel like a puff piece. And it does feel like they're it's sort of not their apology, but it's their excuse for why we did what we did.
We promise you we're having a good time making this.
Like we had to have Leia in this, and this was the best way. We were so fortunate to have footage that JJ shot. Again, I'm fine with that storyline. I think it works well. The more I watch the movie, the less I think about it being chopped together. The story and then you got the issue with, that's where they decided to put Rose with, and since there's not a lot of scenes, she feels like she's put in the back seat, whatever.
But hey, look, they're best friends. Like so they had a great time. Yeah.
And I'm watching this documentary. This is really long, and it feels like a propaganda thing, and I'm fine with it. I really like I'm there for the nostalgia bits of stuff I haven't seen.
And they're all charming people that are on camera, even like the stunt woman, they're all just super charming people that it's fun to see them, but it's you know what you're watching.
But then I was like, they kept talking about how this is the last movie. This is the last one. And I'm like, yeah, but since then we've had like a couple seasons of Mandalurin. We've had Ahsoka,
Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan, and
And I'm just like, I'm thinking about all this Marvel fatigue, which James or Lucha Johnny mentioned. I watched Secret Invasions. It wasn't good. And I'm like sitting here watching this thing, and I'm like, do I have Star Wars fatigue? Like, I never really thought I did, because I get really excited when Ahsoka came out. And
I was going to say, I think the level of excitement that you bring to Invincipod, you do have when there's new episodes of a show.
Yeah.
As long as you're enjoying the episode.
Right.
Like you had that for 7 of the 8 episodes of Ahsoka.
It's true. And
then the last one, like it threw you off a cliff, unfortunately. And I think that's maybe soured your thought really on the series.
I really didn't care for it. And I feel bad because I wanted to, and you were excited about it. And it seems like the majority of the internet was excited about it.
So no, that finale seems to be very divisive. I enjoyed the finale, but we're watching through the series again at the moment because Liz didn't watch it as it was coming out. And we just got past episode 5, and we stopped the other night, and I was like, we could watch Ahsoka now, or just because you've seen that stuff with Anakin, like we could go and watch the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars. She's never seen Clone Wars before. She had watched all of Rebels, so she'd seen Ahsoka there, she'd seen Maul there and stuff. I was like, there's an amazing story here that, like, one of the best bits of Star Wars is this last 4 episode arc of the Clone Wars that I'll show you. And so we watched that, and she loved it. She thought it was great. It's preferred Rebels, but didn't have the context of watching 7 years worth of Clone Wars. But thought it was great. Loved Maul. Maul is like one of her favorite. TV Maul is one of her favorite characters and stuff like that. Like it's
that's what I want from Filoni.
Yeah,
is Rebels. I want that Filoni. I want the Filoni who's like, we're going to create all new people. They're going to be in a separate part of a familiar timeline. Again, I'm tired of the familiar timeline, and I'm ready to move forward. But I want something where it's not just every week. It's like, oh, I remember that guy from this other thing. Isn't that cool?
So I was about to say Skeleton Crew. that could be that. It could be that young, fresh, like exciting adventure. They're saying it's like an Amblin film, like that tone, that style. That's great. And then you said you don't want the links, and I was like, yeah, but I'm pretty sure that the Vane, the pirate from Mandalorian, I think he's going to be in it. But again, like that's a nothing sort of sidey thing, I guess. So hopefully that's not a big like, isn't it connected? But I don't know, that could give you the energy that you want. The Acolyte's coming. Both those projects, the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, seem like they're going to be so different from what we've had and from each other that I'm quite excited about next year's Star Wars offerings. Because I mean, three projects that should be coming next year in Skeleton Crew, Acolyte, and Andor Season 2. All three of them very tonally different, I think.
I know that Wars is in the title, but can we just do something that's
fun?
not that?
Yeah.
Like, can we do like a Real Steel or a Rocky type of movie? Can we do an underdog sports movie that has to do with like robot boxing? Like, can we just be that?
Yeah.
Can we do like
the world
action sort of car movie, like a Fast and Furious style movie?
Yeah.
Where it's smugglers that get into car chases.
Yeah.
Or pod racing. They're pod racers, but they're thieves on the side. Like, can we get something that doesn't have to be
like
Jedi
Solo
and stormtroopers? Like the first, like Solo. There are stormtroopers in it, and they don't even matter. They're just
they're a blip. They're an annoyance. They're a roadblock. Yeah. Like literally a roadblock at one point.
Like that's what I want. And Star Wars, like I guess Solo doesn't have to do with war.
No.
I guess there's sort of like war profiteering, or is even Dryden Voss is just a flat out just
he's just a criminal. He's a criminal. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it has nothing to do with the Empire.
You want Star Wars books. You want the novels, but you want them on screen, like because all those sorts of stories are there. Like you got to find them. They're actually a little bit fewer and far between at the moment, but for a long time that was the sort of stuff we were getting, and that's what I love because this is a tapestry. This whole world is like. Yes, the name is Star Wars, but we take that as we know that it's the Star Wars universe, and that universe is vast. You can tell loads of different stories. It would be cool, and I hope, and I'm thinking that maybe that's what this next one's going to be. Like the Skeleton Crew is going to be something different.
Yeah, there's that game coming out called Outlaws, I think.
Yeah, that looks amazing.
Open world Star Wars game. I don't know if the trailer shows any stormtroopers. I could be wrong.
It might. I think it might.
Johnny says Seinfeld, but it's Star Wars.
Give me a sitcom.
Something. I mean, I guess apparently like Lower Decks is doing really well.
Cool.
Over for Star Trek.
And
like it's Star Trek's taken very seriously, and this is a animated series that apparently is very good. So if we do a comedy in Star Wars, like let's do it. George was working on that show Detours.
It's done. It's like it's in the can. They own the whole thing. It's like an entirely
episodes or something.
Like a totally finished show that just it lives there and is never going to be seen. Like
but it's weird. Like
weird.
Here's the thing. And every time Filoni talks about Star Wars, it's so goddamn serious. Everyone loves posting TikTok video clips, excerpts of Filoni interviews where he's like explaining why Anakin's the greatest thing.
We've all seen the Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sam Witwer explaining character motivations and the Force and things like that. And it's like it's great to see that passion. It's the same thing that's like we're two dudes here talking about Star Wars. We've been doing it for nearly 100 episodes. It is that passion. It's great to see that in the creatives and the people behind the scenes that they have that passion. But it's like you don't have to take it so seriously all the time. You can have fun with it. Just have fun with it.
And the thing is, it's like you watch George in this documentary,
talking
about Star Wars,
archival
I'm
George.
talking about like how big it is, and he's like, I just thought of it as like a fantasy adventure.
Yeah.
Like he's not going deep
Precious
into
about
mythology.
it. He's not precious about it.
He does pull stuff from like, you know, Joseph Campbell and all this shit we've all heard of over and over and over again.
And Kurosawa and
but
Campbell
listen,
and
that's what inspired George.
Yeah.
And George gave that to someone else to take and do whatever they want. Why are we not, you know, why are we still, you know, sticking with George's vision? George would want people to do their own thing. Was it our interview with Gary Whitta where he was saying that George saw the Force Awakens and told Bob Iger, like, I already made this one.
Yeah, there's nothing new.
So let's do something where George would be, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like again, we talked about how Force Awakens felt safe. They played it really safe. And then Rian Johnson came in and was like, I'm going to rip it all up.
Yeah.
And he went the most unsafe route.
Yep.
And I think a lot of it was a hit and a lot of it was a miss for me personally. That's whatever. I think they were really afraid again and played Rise of Skywalker safe. But at the same time, I feel like they maybe put too much pressure on themselves.
I think it was a Rian Johnson turned left, and so they tried to, in their minds, course correct when the course wasn't needing correcting.
Yeah.
And they went too far and they spun out. I think like I enjoyed Rise of Skywalker. I think it's a fun movie, but I think it does spin out the trilogy, and we talk about it every time we talk about any of these three movies, how there is no cohesion between them. I enjoy all three on different levels. I think Last Jedi now, after watching Force Awakens recently, and then the two behind the scenes documentaries of the other two, I'm pretty firm in saying that The Last Jedi is my favorite of the three. But I can see the flaws in it as well, and I can see the flaws in this one as well.
Yeah.
It's weird. We're not talking about the documentary too much, but I think we sort of said what we needed to say, where it's like it is a puff piece. It is like the only real behind the scenes and like making of sort of stuff that we get in it is like, look at how cool the Babu Frick miniature is and all the work that went into it, and it's amazing. It's so good. It's the puppeteering of it all is excellent. And then there was something else that the stunt work, and Daisy Ridley's stunt coordinator and everything like that. Well, she was the stunt coordinator and all of it, and how much of a character she is and how much passion she had with it. It's like, love seeing that stuff. I want to see that from all the departments. I would like, not necessarily that level of passion, but like that level of going into each department. I thought it was cute, and they showed off all the like John Williams bits and bobs and his cameo. Yeah. Cool, I'm good with that. Like it's his first and only time on camera in there. Make a point of it, show it off. But so much of it, the rest of it was like, we did this. Wasn't it lovely to do this? Hey, didn't we all have a great time doing this? And this is just the story just dictated. It was like it wrote itself. Like I was like, no, it didn't. Like, come on.
No, they showed them trying to figure out what the MacGuffin was, which seems like while they were already in production,
they were with
the dagger, trying to figure out how that works.
And JJ even sort of saying is like, go on.
I know that people have a problem with all the MacGuffins and the fact that the dagger just happens, like it's supposed to be ancient, but it lines up with something that had been 30 years ago. And
I can hate canon that
makes sense because there should
added
be
in
erosion, you know. The dish would probably eventually like break down with the seawater. I'm fine with it. I really have no. I mean, I don't have any issues. The only real issue I have with the Rise of Skywalker, and I think I said it back then, and I'll say it again now, because according to this documentary, it showed me that Dennis Lawson was on set a lot more than just his 1 second long cameo.
Yeah, it seemed like it, and he wanted to like be in an admiral uniform and things like that. Like he was on set enough to do it behind the scenes. Like he had a talking head.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts of him being an admiral? Because I know you love Wedge just being the maverick and being, I'm a pilot. That's in my blood. Like, what are
but by this point, timeline wise, I would have been fine with him on a bridge.
yeah.
I would have been fine with him on a bridge. I would have been fine with him in a cockpit. I would have been fine with having him at all the briefings and everything that we saw all the way through.
But it looks
I've always
like he showed up at the celebration at the end.
Oh, I missed that.
He's on that. He's on that.
That is the set. That's where.
It.
I mean, maybe that's just where they were filming the talking heads. That's my only thought. Is maybe
he's in a flight suit. he's dressed as a pilot.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you couldn't get a couple of shots of him, like
George flew him
again.
George flew him out to LA when they were shooting the Ewok celebration because he was like, well, no, Wedge has got to be here. Like that in Return of the Jedi, like they had all the principles, and he was like, no, Wedge is a big part of this. He's in all three of these. He flew him out, and there's an interview with Dennis Lawson where he's like, yeah, I was never originally in that scene. George sort of got me out there to do that, and it's like just to give Chewie a hug. It's like let him give Chewie another hug. We don't need Lin-Manuel Miranda doesn't need to give Chewie a hug. Dennis Lawson needs to give Chewie a hug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, can you imagine Wedge? What if, okay, I want to rewrite this movie.
A movie that you love.
A movie that I love. This is what I want to happen.
Everyone loves it when fans rewrite movies.
No, you're going to want this to happen.
I mean, I already do.
So Wedge gives Chewie a hug.
Yep.
Chewie gives Wedge the medal.
Oh yeah, Wedge deserves that medal more than anyone.
Yeah, well, maybe.
No, I'm being facetious.
For the first battle, but Wedge deserves a medal.
Absolutely.
Probably more than Chewbacca. Nothing against co-pilots.
No, I mean, yeah, no, probably, yeah, probably.
Yeah,
he definitely deserves one for the second Death Star.
I feel like yes, and he probably has one.
I'd like to think so. We don't know. It might be made out of Stormtrooper like eyes or something that the Ewoks made for him.
How about this? Chewie has the medal. He's cut it in half.
Yeah,
that's just best friends.
Bites it like a doubloon. Yeah, they've got two halves of metal. Amazing. Yeah, I love that. That's super cute.
Yeah.
Because they're like or like break it into threes, like and give thirds and like give Lando a piece as well because they were all there. Like they're the last three now. Those three and the droids are like the last bastions. Like because none dies in this movie, I think, doesn't he? Like he goes down with Tantive.
I don't remember.
I think it looks like it. It's ambiguous. It's pretty ambiguous, and I don't think we see him in the celebration. So, yeah. Also, Wedge should be upset at that celebration if he's there because his adopted son just died. Because he's married to Snap Wexley's mum.
What?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Snap is like Wedge's stepchild.
All right. I can't. That's too much.
I'm pretty sure it's Wedge that gives him the name Snap because his name is Temin Wexley. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Wedge because like he's just always like clicking. That's just a tick that he has.
All right, sure. Sure. But Dennis Lawson seemed genuinely excited to be there.
He did.
He didn't think he was like, I didn't think I was going to be on. You can kind of.
I think probably because he turned down 7. Like they sort of he thought, oh, I've closed the door and they're not going to ask me to come back.
Right.
That felt like a JJ thing though, to be like, come on, last one.
Yeah.
So I've always had a theory about where like the role that they wanted him in 7. And I think it's the role that Miles ended up taking, that general around the base.
Ken Leung.
Ken Leung, yeah. I think it was that role, like that Admiral Satora, I think it is.
Maybe.
Something like that.
But I like that Dennis Lawson has been thinking about Wedge and where he thinks Wedge should have gone.
Yeah.
So that because it's
He's
always
been on the
been like,
convention
oh, he
circuit.
doesn't want to do it. He's just like, I don't want
Yeah.
to. So
I mean, he read some audiobooks back in the day. Like, he's at least vaguely aware of some of the stuff in the old EU. Like, he did the abridged version of Heir to the Empire way back when it was like a book on tape.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure he did the abridged version of at least the first X-Wing book.
Yeah.
So he's got it there. He knows, he does know this stuff. He did voices for like one of the Rogue Squadron video games. He was wedging at least one of those three. So you know, he'll do the job when he needs to do the job.
So we were talking about
get his nephew Ewan to give him a shout.
Yeah, we're talking about like different genres of Star Wars and like you know, sports underdog, you know, whatever. Ian Hart said that, you know, a Star Warsy Miami Vice, Beverly Hills Cop buddy, Private Eye type film would be hilarious. He said, but the haters would hate it. And I feel like
they're going to hate it no matter what.
Yeah. So that's the thing is, it's like, I want such a wide variety of Star Wars that people can just either like it or not and just kind of go. You don't have to. And that's another thing about everything being canon is once things are canon, people start picking it apart like it's wrong.
Yeah.
Like they know what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
And if you do something like Solo, like you really can't complain about anything that's right or wrong in it because it's so removed from everything else, with the exception of Darth Maul.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's not tied like it's not tied to the Empire like Rogue One is. It's not at a very specific time. So if you do stuff like that where they can't, where the haters can't like
can it be
problems, just inconsistencies?
Neomos Vice, the beach planet from Andor, Neomos Vice.
Yeah.
Just give me a cool alien and a human buddy cop, like not even buddy cop, like just PIs or something like that. Like or a
K2
and Melshi. Give me like what was Melshi up to when he leaves Cassian before like season 2 when he's going to come back in. That'd be great. More Melshi on Neomos as a PI working against the regime. I don't have
what else is the documentary. I mean, it's like 2 hours and 7 minutes of stuff that's not really groundbreaking, or earth shattering. It's a lot of explaining why they did what they did.
Timing is really interesting with some of the stuff with John Boyega and Naomi Aki. I thought was really interesting at the end where they're talking about how cool and great it is to see two black actors leading a revolution, and being like riding in as the cavalry. I thought that was an interesting point that they said, like, we're the cavalry. We don't see this. Like, there isn't that sort of representation normally.
Yeah.
And it was a year later, less than a year later, that John Boyega's stood there in the middle of Hyde Park saying, I don't give a fuck if I've got a career after this. This is more important. It's something, it shows to me that it's like, it's something that's on his mind. Like he grew up in some poor areas of London. Like he's not like Daisy Ridley is a rich kid. Like she's doing fine. And even when she's sort of saying how like, oh, I'm not really the most adventurous person in the world. It's like, yeah, no, you've come from some privilege. You're great. We love you, but you've come from some privilege. John Boyega, not so much. He's had to fight and he's scrapped his way to the point where he's at. So for him, whether he likes the film or not, having those moments are super cool. And I don't think it's as much as he wanted. I think he wanted the full Stormtrooper rebellion that was in the Duel of the Fates script. But it was something. He got something to do there. So even if it's just those scenes that he enjoys, great. Cool.
I mean, again, not to rewrite, but it would have been rad if John Boyega was leading like a group of First Order stormtroopers in white versus those red Sith ones.
Or even
that
like
seems to
if
make
everyone,
so much more sense.
instead of resistance fighters, we see her ride up with like a couple of other people, and she talks about her all of her people are former stormtroopers. She had an entire battalion, not just a one person who, and they should have like ramshackle stormtrooper armor, their old armor, like duct taped together, or like with the Greeblies all over it. Rex and Rebels, that's it, exactly that. Like that sort of thing, and that those are the people, they're the ones fighting, mixed in with the resistance fighters.
It makes so much more sense. It adds an arc to his character. Now
especially as they went back there to get the horses anyway.
He's the new leader.
Like they clearly went and picked him up. So like, yeah. And then he leads it, and he could have put on some armor. Like, doesn't need the helmet, lose the helmet, but like put on some armor because you're going into battle. Maybe it's the armor with like Poe's jacket around it, like, or his new version of the Poe jacket.
Maybe some war paint.
Yeah. Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah. I mean, listen, here's the thing. You give Chris Terrio and J.J. Abrams like an extra year.
Yeah.
Give them an extra year to sort of figure this shit out.
Not like going in with, because like there is a lot from, not a lot. There's stuff from the Duel of the Fate script that is still there. Like there is elements that they cool. That's great. Let's take that. Let's rework it a little bit so it fits in with this. But there are still some of the DNA.
There's nothing wrong with being reactionary and hearing what the fans say and what they bitch and complain about or what they love.
Yeah.
But sit on it.
Yeah.
Sleep on it.
And let everyone else sit on it.
Think about,
I think that's the thing. Like they were in production on this as the other one's coming out, and as the vitriol was coming out online. Like that was an awful time to be on the internet. And so they are making a film with that as the only, like that's the prominent feeling on Star Wars at the moment, is just hate, this was shit, this was terrible, you're ruining it, ruin Johnson, blah, 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 all that nonsense. So they're making a film with that in mind. And it's like, guys, that's not a good atmosphere to be making.
They fired their original director and writer, and they're starting from scratch and keeping certain things and getting rid of other things.
It's a mess. Should have delayed a year. Should have just delayed a year. Like,
just, and that's what I'm hoping Filoni does, is like, hey, listen, if you have a plan for like a new trilogy, don't set the release dates. No. I know there's a big scramble for release dates, and studios trying to get certain weekends to release stuff. It's like, just people are going to show up to Star Wars,
and people will move their movies. So even if like Warner Brothers, or not, even if like other studios have locked down December 18th or whatever it is that they want to release on, or May 25th, ideally, like
do the George Lucas prequel model.
Yeah,
come up with a 3-story arc.
Yeah.
Work on 1, then 2, then 3. Even
3
Attack of the
movies
Clones is reactionary.
Absolutely, to real world and to movies and other things. Like the second and third prequels, like people like to say, there was a unifying thing. Yes, there was. He had an arc, but the details aren't there.
Right.
Like all of those movies, like he had an idea for a trilogy, but Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, like Leia wasn't his sister originally. There was another. Like, it's like these are things that get worked out. So you can work it out. Just take your time. And if there's a negative reaction to something, let people sit on it for a year, because they might still have that opinion, but it'll probably have calmed down.
Also, are they having that reaction because they haven't heard the whole story yet?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, this documentary felt like it was trying to fix something. Like,
and it felt like trying to convince
people that hated
it. It felt like it was like, no, really, it's good. You like this one, and some of the voiceover that was done, and some of the way that they were cross cutting between like old interviews of Mark Hamill and stuff like that. It was like, Yeah, we know that you didn't like his stuff, or that that Luke Skywalker is meant to be a bastion of hope and all of this, and it's like, but you didn't get that in the last one, so we're doing it now. It's like, don't stop trying to convince us. Like, people can love it, they can hate it. Like, just let it be. Don't pander. Reaction's fine, but don't pander. I think that's the key. It's a shame. It's a shame because there's clearly like, as James says here as well, and as we've talked about, it's like everyone involved was doing. No one's trying to make a bad movie ever. Like, even the worst movie in the world, everyone involved is trying to make a good movie, and they all did a good job. I think that's the thing. It's like the sum of its parts wasn't quite as good as it could have been.
Right. Speaking of which, I am currently making a movie.
You are.
And
you're really trying to make it good.
I'm really trying to make it good, dude. Like, I'll have to tell you who we have coming up, but I am shooting next week. We're shooting like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then hopefully, if we get more emails, we get Monday and Tuesday, and keep on going. So there's not going to be a data leak next week. Luckily for us, well, I mean, for me, it's a little sad, but also it couldn't have been a better time. This Friday is the mid-season finale of Invincible, so on Friday we'll have a new Invincipod.
It's really convenient for me as well. Like, next Friday, next weekend, I'm really busy, so it does.
Yeah,
I'm
works
sad.
out. Like, Kirkman figured that out. Good planning on his part.
Thanks, Robert.
But tomorrow is Thanksgiving over here, and Invincible's going to drop at around 4 my time. We will be up on Friday at 9, so I might actually end up watching it Friday morning.
Before
we jump on and record.
I'll be watching it Friday, like, daytime for me.
But yeah, I think Mark Vibert of the Whole Maneuver Pod and Animation Fascination asked us to be on the first to talk about Invincible. I'm like,
can't do it.
Or no.
And
if I told you what I was doing that day, you would understand that you were taking a back seat to somebody else. I'm not going to say who. Again, we don't like jinxing ourselves, so we can't really say who we're talking to until after the footage is in the can and done. But when I tell you, if I were to tell you on Friday, you would understand.
And people will find this stuff out. Like, you guys are releasing information about who you've got and stuff. Like, you just announced Jeff Fahey the other day.
Dude, last Saturday, on Saturday. Okay, so Friday after Invincipod, I get a text message from Taylor, the director, and he's like, Fahey is either available tomorrow or sometime next year.
You go with tomorrow on that one always.
Okay, I said we will figure it out.
Yeah.
And so Taylor, who lives in Oregon, got a crew set up down here. I went and visited. I went up there to like sort of set things up, make sure everything was good as far as what we're used to as far as the production goes. Taylor was there via Zoom. If you go to @CasinoSkunk on Instagram, you can see the crew picture we took, which at Fahey, I have my arm around a laptop where Taylor is zoomed in. And it's one of those things where it's just like, you don't know what's going to happen. And so, like, I know what's happening next week. I know what's supposed to happen next week, but things may drop in. But yeah, so Mark, sorry about that. But I was going to say, we are sitting on another announcement of someone we shot a week ago, Monday, that is like probably one of our biggest ones. And we have to make sure that certain things are cleared before we got to get that paperwork signed.
Is this the one that I know about?
I probably know about it, but it's done. I can't share that, but we're just like fucking chomping at the bit. We're like, please just I know you're busy, please just sign that paperwork. We cut out things that were said. Things that while they were being said were like, that's not going anywhere near.
That's not getting released.
So we sent all the footage with the stuff they asked for to be cut out, sent it to them. We're waiting for response and the signed paperwork. As soon as that happens, like the second that happens, you'll see that announcement. Amazing. So hopefully that happens before Tuesday, which is the 27th, I think is Tuesday 27th. 27th is our next shoot, unless something else comes up. And that's another big one. Awesome. I mean, next week is all big ones.
Amazing.
Next week, right now we're sitting on like 4 people who were in the pilot who are also in the finale.
Whoa, okay. That's pretty major, because
we're getting there.
Yeah.
So it's like big. It's exciting. Big week. And Mark, we will be on Animation Fascination. I will talk about Invincible every day and every night.
Yep.
Just not on the first.
Yeah. Let's work some time out.
We'll work something out.
Yeah.
Yeah. The following week, I think I'm wide open, and I could get back to doing Patreon shows, and we can get back to doing data links and stuff. And
but in 2 weeks' time, we've got a regular episode, as long as your schedule is available.
Yes. And I will tell you what that is, because you mentioned something, and I looked it up while we were going here. And I wanted to make it not 2 hours. I wanted to make it real easy. We're going to give you guys homework where when we say, hey, we're going live in 15 minutes, you could pop this on right now and come chat with us.
In too long, so it is one of them.
It is also an extra on Disney Plus's Rise of Skywalker thing.
Okay.
You go to Rise of Skywalker, go to extras. It's a 12-minute piece called The Maestro's Finale.
Amazing. Love it.
This is a bonus feature about the music of John Williams.
Yep.
It's 12 minutes long. We get a little bit more of the stuff from this. And I love John Williams. I love his music.
He's the best.
And yeah, do I still have it around here? I don't have it around here. Yeah, I'll talk about my Raiders of the Lost Ark tape that I got when I was 4 years old.
Yeah.
And I think that's all we got. So yeah, no data link next week. Invincipod returns next week, and we'll then come
this
back
Friday.
This
Friday is Invincipod. It's the
after tomorrow.
Season finale. So yeah, if everyone is watching that, either watch it over Thanksgiving. I can imagine
if you're waiting in line for Black Friday deals.
Yeah.
Just pop us on. We'll be talking about Invincible. Watch Invincible, by the way.
Do people still do that? Does people still line up? Is it not just all online now?
Cyber Monday's a thing, so I'm assuming that there's
I suppose. I don't know. We've
never done it.
We've had Black Friday over here for a while, and it's so we get all of the deals and everything like that now, but it's still it's not the mad rush that you guys over there had. I actually do celebrate Thanksgiving because it's a nice excuse to get friends around, and we all bring a dish and stuff like that, and we all have a good time. Like the history of it and all of that of it can suck a dick, but this is great.
Yeah.
Like I like the friendship aspect of it for me, because everyone gets busy around Christmas. So for us, it's nice to do it then.
Yeah. And yeah, again, join us on Friday. Lucha Johnny will be there. He's very excited. And we're excited to have him. Last week we had our first guest, and Vector was rad.
Yeah, it was wicked.
And I cannot wait. Stevie says it's good to be thankful. I'm thankful for Stevie too. She was actually out grocery shopping during like the first half of this. And I feel bad because I was talking with you instead of helping her grab groceries, but that's okay.
That's okay. I feel bad. I think Liz is downstairs making dinner, so we're both terrible people.
Yeah. So watch these terrible people in a couple of weeks.
I'm thankful for you as my podcast co-host, Ralph. So, that's it. That's it for this week, I think. Join us in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about John Williams, and that's going to be a love fest right there. I can tell you now already.
If there's one thing that all Star Wars fans can agree on, it's John Williams.
Absolutely.
You can't. If you try to say something bad about him, you're an asshole.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Alrighty.
Cool. All right. Until next week, have a nice week off. And until 2 weeks' time, or Friday, if you join us with Invincipod, don't give it to hate.
Celebrate the love.
Punch it.